Hello, today we're going to talk about ecoviolence. Recent theories of civil violence highlight environmental scarcity as a major cause factor. Apparently, most post Cold War violence may be explained as ecoviolence, where people fight for survival as a result of environmental pressure stemming from a denuded resource base. Scarcity and conflict, direct and indirect effects. The issue of environmental pressure as a source of conflict revolves largely around resource degradation and resource scarcity. The extreme pessimistic view of environmental pressure and conflict is reflected in neo Malthusian arguments about the population explosion and the coming anarchy. Some scholars link population pressure and environmental scarcity to conflict in sophisticated accounts that are systematically testable. This analysis showed that several other factors mediate the effects of environmental pressure. These intervening variables range from cultural concepts of the environment, nature, and degree of social leverage, the availability of social capital, nature of institutions, skills and ideology, propensities of leadership and groups, among others. The Toronto group headed the Thomas Homer Dixon are ambiguous when they claim resource scarcity to be the cause mechanism of many of today's conflict. If this is true, then its direct and indirect effects on conflicts could be estimated. Contrary to a large body of literature on the causes of economic growth that finds natural resource wealth to be problematic, ecoviolence theorists argue that scarcity is a barrier against the production of ingenuity and adaptation to the economic hardship. Arguments they link to new growth theory show to show that the lack of natural resources constrains social institutions and technical innovations. Theory creating conditions that trigger conflict. According to ecoviolence theories, conflicts is generated by the scarcity of natural resources in at least two primary ways. First, resource scarcity has direct effects on conflicts when scarcity drives elites to capture resources, marginalizing powerless groups in the process. Secondly, the indirect effect of scarcity is also as important in the large picture. The link between environmental pressure and conflict is mediated in part by the ability of societies to achieve such collective goods as economic growth and innovation, thereby adapting to changing conditions generated by the resource scarcity. It is not merely mineral wealth that is salient to these arguments, but so is renewable resource wealth such as abundant cropland and agriculture assets. Despite ecoviolence arguments about land scarcity and violence, former models of innovation in agriculture economics and developmental studies offer counter perspective which suggests that agriculture growth occurs when counter perspective which suggests that growth occurs when population density leads to the scarcity of land, whereby the larger number of mouths to feed leads to the intensification of agriculture and thereby to innovations. Excess labor is then freed to other economic activities that support intensive farming. The result from a long term study at the United Nations University's World Institution for Development Economics Research, WIDER, shows clearly the differing impacts of resource abundance on lower performance in terms of growth and socioeconomic development. Abundance and conflicts. Recent research, spearheaded by the Development Economics Research Group at the World Bank, represents the first systematic empirical work of conflict utilizing microeconomic theories that integrate natural resource capture as direct motive for organizing large-scale rebellion. Based on the promises that the availability of natural resource exported as primary commodities spawn violent conflicts because it provides incentives for rebel groups to form on the basis of capturing loot in the form of resources which is used to finance big wars. It has been common knowledge that many of today's most durable conflicts, such as Angola, Liberia, and Democratic Republic of Congo, Sierra Leone, etc., are fueled by the struggle for control of oil, diamonds, mines, timber, and other resources, and various conflicts in Asia and Latin America are fueled by the profits from trade in illegal commodities such as weapons and drugs or hardwood timber. Research in security conflicts. Haug and Ellingson, perhaps the most ambitious and widely cited large end test um, of the effects of environmental variables on conflicts, find moderate support for the positions that accurate degradation of forest resource soil and the precarious availability of fresh water predict the incidence of internal armed conflict. Despite making substantial contribution to the literature, Haug and Ellingsar's operation of the key environmental variable theoretically unsatisfactory, at least from the point of view of capturing scarcity. In fact, 2 out of 3 key variables, which also happens to be the one with the strongest results, deforestation and soil degradation, are measured as rate of change rather than levels. Creating a good natural environment and healthy, sustainable use of natural resources are worth goals to strive for, and heuristics that link environmental changes to the breakdown of social relations should be applauded for their efforts. There is little or no support for ecoviolence theories. Renewable resources abundance among poorest countries also seem to have indirect effects on conflicts for economic and social progress. The results find ample support for those who argue that greed rather than grievance, at least in the terms of the availability of natural resources, are linked to generate armed forces.